Jonah, David, and the suffering we bring on ourselves. One kind of suffering is directly caused by our own failures. A woman seeks to be successful in business by being ruthless and cruel throughout her career. But as time goes on, she finds herself with fewer and fewer friends and allies. When she makes a decision that leads to some losses for her company, she discovers that she has no support from her team. As a result, she is summarily dismissed, and her reputation sustains great damage because many of her enemies gladly exaggerate her errors on the grapevine. Her career ruined, she slowly realized it was due to her own hard-knuckled and foolish behavior. Here is another example. A married man has a very brief one-night stand on a business trip and is later found out. His marriage swiftly falls apart, and he discovers himself permanently alienated from his children. Suffering accompanied with shame and guilt brings a unique kind of inner torment. This first kind of suffering is seen in the lives the biblical figures Jonah and David. Within the short book of Jonah, the prophet endured two very different but traumatic experiences. First, God sent a massive, life-threatening storm at sea. Later, when Jonah was enjoying the shade and the beauty of a particular climbing vine, God sent a worm and an east wind to destroy the plant, which deeply discouraged him. Why? Jonah had refused God's original call to go preach it to the Assyrians of Nineveh. Later he was furious that God did not destroy them. Jonah was filled with a racist hatred of these people, and God was using adverse circumstances to show him the evil of his own heart. That is why everything went wrong for him. A storm almost drowned him. His mortal enemies escaped the noose. A hot east wind even destroyed his comfortable, shady dwelling. But God was trying to reveal something to Jonah. He was trying to wake him up. Similarly, when King David's life fell apart, there was also a specific sin that caused it, and God was sending a specific message through the suffering. David had violated the law of God by having an affair with Bathsheba, another man's wife, and by arranging to have her husband killed. Then the two young sons of David and Bathsheba became sick and died. And David realized that God was saying to him that he had to change his ways or lose his kingship and his life. Was God punishing David and Jonah for their sins? Not exactly. Romans chapter 8 verse 1 says that there is no condemnation for a believer. That means simply that if Jesus has received our punishment and made payment for our sins, God can not then receive a second payment out of us as well. God does not exact the retribution from a believer because of Jesus and because if he really punished us for our sins, we'd all have been dead long ago. But God often appoints some aspect of the brokenness of the world caused by sin in general. Genesis chapter 3, Romans chapter 8. To come into our lives, to wake us up and turn us to Him. The severity of this depends on our heart's need. It is quite important to distinguish between a David experience of suffering and a Job-type experience, namely suffering not brought on directly by anything you've been doing. A Christian man who develops lymphoma should not think that he is being punished for a sin, though he must not, on the other hand, miss this opportunity to put his roots down into God and discover a dimension of spiritual growth and wisdom he would never otherwise have had access to. Now think through this illustration. Imagine that a man becomes engaged 5 times in a row, and each time he breaks up with his fiancée because each fiancée exhibits some personal flaw. He assigns the blame in every case to a false, but actually his own perfectionism and attitudes of moral superiority are the main causes of the relationship failure. It is a huge blind spot for him. It may be then that one particular brutal breakup might shake him to the core and finally show him what he has been contributing to all this misery. His suffering and distress is a wake-up call to change something very particular in his life. Suffering could be the only way for such a man to be humbled and to wake up to his own shortcomings. The psalmist says in Psalm chapter 25, "Cleanse me from hidden faults." In general, it is only troubles and difficulties that can reveal such things to us.